Okay, here's your upload that you wanted. Obviously, I've heard that I'm being accused of supporting your allegations and things like that. You're trying to drag me into things which I have said are below me. It's not my line. I'm not doing it. I'm not one of you guys in the sense of sitting on Dean's knee and dancing around in this level of shit. It's just not me. I just don't do it. So it's like, I've said my piece. I've said I don't support anybody in this. I would support the lady involved if she wanted support. I'm here. Hello, I am here. You can contact me. I've got a friend who's done the counselling and all that stuff. We can have a more understanding outlet for it if that's what you wanted. It wouldn't even have to be public if you didn't want it to be. So that has already gone on the table ages ago, right? So here we are. So my question is the timing of this. I think partly to do with just the fact that Angela happened to be around last night. Also, I'm not supposed to mention your name. That the other lady in the situation happened to be around that night. And I would have definitely discussed, I really do want to talk to her, just not about specifically that as the actual opening gambit, although I assume it's something that she felt strongly about. However, when I gave her my answer, which is I'm not dancing to this tune, and it's not dinner party conversation, it's just not what I'm about. Either way, I've never been about dancing around in people's really old, really traumatic stuff, like drawing up people's trauma just for a laugh. And that's what all you guys are doing. And it's on both sides. I'm not supporting one person or another. You are literally making a situation worse. It's really deep stuff. And people like reaching out for help in the only way that they can find. And you guys have kind of got a responsibility as people who can see outside of it to just not make it into a circus for those people. I know there's personal choice and things like that, and people are grown adults. But you see, that's just a place that I'm just not getting involved with influencing in either way. You see, I just don't want to mess around with people's heads to that level, man. There's trolling and then there's fucking hell. That's just not my personal choice. So you can join on me for whatever reason you want and chuck whatever on me, because I'm not going to stand there shouting about something, about a situation just for clicks or some fun or whatever it is, just to eat someone on either side. And that goes for you, Dee, because you went and threw the other one under the bus. So grandmas, I did say as well on this, but I'm not throwing either side under the bus. I'm just like, what I will say is that, as I've said, and as I said last night, when Hayat went back to Dean and Lewis for more bullying of his own choice, that's when I just was like, see you later. Right? So that, and I've not been part of that. I've not even been part of anything because, as you know, I've had my own shit to deal with, which brings me to this. See, when you brought it to me yesterday, I was like, oh, I kind of appreciated it, and I was kind of like, oh, it's like this potential drama's been laid at my feet, and I was like, cheers, Dean, do you know what I mean? But I know that you've done it for your own reasons. But I was like thinking about it, and I was like, well, I suppose most people, what should you do under these circumstances, under the criteria of this place? What should I do? It's like, I should start a to and fro, make a video, maybe make a song, maybe do something. And it's just like, but I just didn't have the drive. I just did not have the push behind it, because it's just not my interest. And also it's a bit manufactured. Like, if I was to do that, it's like knowingly going into that dance, going into that play just for that. And I would have my reasons for doing it, which would be funny to me, because obviously it would have impact on in the situation. It might not, but it's just not something I want to spend my time doing. Even if I didn't go into the distasteful to me part of going so far and going so low, as to have to use that and harp on that. And for the lady who I spoke to this morning in question, it just says a lot about a person if that's what your opening gambit is just hiding behind. I know that you can argue that that was a thing that was strongly something that you wanted to bring up, but still, it's just literally the first thing. And also, if you felt so strongly about it, maybe give it a little bit more credit than just this half. It's just obviously been something that's been a bee in your bonnet, and you're just like, I've just got to get it out there, but you were obviously either half asleep or half cut, and you were repeating yourself and shouting your name over me, and just doing a Dean shouting me down. So fair enough. That kind of proves to me, again, that you might not be open to the most discussion on the subject, which then gives me question as to what your motives are when dealing with something which is potentially so traumatic for two people, one of whom isn't really involved in any of this. I think maybe she has obviously shown her own choice in that by reaching out to Dean, but at the same time, we're talking vulnerable people and people who are in trauma, and so opening it with that, it's just not my scene, it's just not my thing at all. It just makes me question your motives, especially when you waited until you knew I was leaving and I was on my last goodbye to Buttocks. So you say goodbye and then you say goodbye and then you do your last goodbye, and I was on that goodbye when you turned up. So it really was a case of you're not really giving it much space if you do want to discuss it. Now, I am open to discussing to some level this with you, but like I say, this is what I thought, obviously, because I was just like, that manufactured to and fro, especially over something so deep, and not something that I really want to touch, which is obviously why Dean gets fun. Yeah, I had a little break in between. But that's why, obviously, Dean wanting to push this, because he knows that's a boundary of mine, and he loves to push his boundaries. And as I say, it's all well and good in the Troll Dojo, and everyone's got their own levels. It's just my level just does not sink that low. And I would never open up a conversation with someone on that. And again, even if it was something that I felt so strongly, it would still be something that I would build up to, rather than just going into someone else's, rather than using someone else's trauma. And on that note, I don't want to be like a damp squib and be like, oh, I'm no fun or anything like that. I just don't see that as fun. Plus, when I was sat thinking about it, I was like, there's no interest for me, because my interest is psychology, and that's not psychology for me. It might be for you, because you're trying to push a thing where I'm supposedly the spokeswoman for all women in this place, and supposedly if once I take this on, I'm supposed to then take on whatever you guys want to paint onto me as some sort of figurehead for whatever schemes you're wanting to run. It could be. And what I would say to that is, instead of this low-level shit, why don't we actually make something? Why don't, if they want to suck the fucking crumbs off any women who come round here, why don't we talk about this stuff? You said you've got a background in psychology. Why don't we discuss? I'd love to hear from you, and I genuinely would. But we can talk about this, and if you want to harp on a thing that because I don't want to dance around in this low-level way, that means I'm failing as a spokeswoman for all women in this place, and therefore supporting assault on somebody, then that's something that you're just going to have to deal with, because I am doing what I'm doing and I'm purely not supporting that. So if you do want to talk about it, or you even want to create something together which those guys can use for whatever reason they want, then it might add a little bit to the part that isn't just hiding behind someone else. And I just think that we're more than capable of doing it. There's no fear in it. And if you wanted, maybe we could bring some other people to the panel. I've got a few ideas and things like that. But if you did want to do something, I wouldn't want it to be directed by Dean, and I wouldn't want it to be him sniggering in the background, especially when it's about something like this. You might have a point where you don't understand my point. you don't understand where I stand. I don't think it is this though, but even if it was, you know, you don't understand my viewpoint in that just because I'm not doing what you guys are doing, it means something else that you're trying to put on it. You know, that's your issue. That's what you're trying to do. But yeah, like I say, we could do it that way instead if you wanted and actually make something. We could discuss things, we could have a to and fro, we can debate, we could do it on your channel. We don't have to do it on my channel, but I wouldn't want to do it on Dean's channel. I don't even want to go anywhere near his channel, and he knows that, so there's that. But the second thing that I wanted to bring up, yeah, it was just that would actually put me, the interest in that, I would have interest in that, because we'd be discussing psychology potentially, or we'd be having a debate over stuff, or like whatever little play people are trying to put across, like it could be the differing opinions of what we think people are trying to pull, because people are always trying to pull something around here, as this proves, you know what I mean. And I suppose that is what's piqued my interest, because a little bit, not this particular subject, but I know that Dean's trying one on. So that is more interesting to me, because it's the psychology of why, the timing, him sitting and stirring his silence cake for a little bit, and me watching him and seeing how he plays his shit out, which after dealing with Tommy and Evil is a refreshing change. So it's more of that, and that I'm down for. So not necessarily the subject at hand. That's not because I want to not talk about the situation and I want to just gloss over something, but it is also that as well. Not because I want to gloss over it, but because I just don't think it's my place, and so therefore I will abstain from the real depths of the depravity of dancing around in that. That's just my own personal choice, and I am allowed to exercise that choice even in this place, because there are still standards. So yeah, have a think about what I said, and let me know what you think. Oh yeah, and I should add something about this business of you burying me. Without the shouting me down, without the waiting until I had to leave, then maybe we can have a rematch, shall we, if you're so strong in your position. And also what I will say is, if all it takes to bury someone is staying on a stream after they've had to go, that means that night on my stream with Lewis and Slotham, where Lewis says he buried Slotham, well, I don't think so, because Lewis was the one who left, wasn't it? So which one is it, Lewis? If you leave before the other person has to leave, then they automatically win. That means that Slotham beat you that night, doesn't it? Oh dearie me. Especially since you were the one jumping in there straight up with your hosannas to sort of spin this one out. I'm just saying, you knew I was leaving. I wasn't about to get into a shouting match, since you were shouting your own name over me, and had Dean in the background as well about something that's kind of delicate, as I've outlined. Do you know what I mean? So without all those little gimmicks to try and bolster yourself, if you actually want to have a discussion and bury me and actually do and have a go at it, then have a go at it then. Let's just have it out, or just have a fucking panel. I think we could have a good discussion and actually create something positive. You know, and I don't mean just it has to be all like lemonade, but I'm just saying it doesn't have to be quite as vampire-ish as this. So I'm more than happy to be considered quote unquote buried by you, because all it means is that I'm less vampire-ish than you, unless I just don't want to do that. That's all it means. It just means that you're the queen of the fucking wanting to eat vulnerable people. And if you work with vulnerable people, that's a bit off, innit?